everyone. This is Dr. John DeMartini, and welcome to another of our webinars. Tonight or today, depending on where you are, we're going to be basically dealing with breaking through fantasies and achieving true goals. I like that topic, so we're going to have some fun. I see people are coming in, and I see from Hawaii, we see some Auckland, New Zealand, South Africa, Germany, Nacogdoches, Texas, coming in from all over the place. Cape Town, Boulder, Colorado, Melbourne, Australia, Kauai. It's great. England. Thank you for all joining me. Thank you for coming online and participating at whatever hours that you may be participating in. I happen to be in Johannesburg at the Michelangelo Hotel where I live when I'm here. I just flew in from Sydney, Australia, and Melbourne, Australia, just a few hours ago, and I'm here, and I look forward to our webinar. So there'll be some comments on the side that I'll be occasionally reading, but I thought what I would do is I would do a presentation for the next 45 minutes or so, and then we'll go to Q&A. At the end of the presentation, I'll be letting you know about other events that we'll be doing, primarily the Master Planning for Life program and other things. And I think it's time to begin. So, breaking through fantasies and achieving true goals. I hear some conversation in the background. Sorry. There's some speaking going on. Is there? I'm not sure if somebody has their mic on. Maybe we can cut their mic off because I could hear people coming through. Okay, let's see if that works. All right. Many people come to me at the Breakthrough Experience program or at Master Planning or just one-on-one in consulting and say, you know, I've set many goals and not all of my goals have come true. And I've seen that for many, many years. Not everybody achieves every goal that they set. So the question is that goal really, really important to them? Are they really willing to do whatever it takes to get that goal? Or are they setting up a fantasy? You know, I ask people, how many of you want to be financially independent? And most people put their hands up, but a very small percentage of people actually obtain financial independence because they're setting a goal that is not really aligned and congruent with what they value most, which is partly a self-defeating objective. So I'd like to talk about the difference between a fantasy and a goal and setting goals that are objectives that are going to happen or increase the probability of them happening at least. So in order to develop that, I want to start from my basics dealing with axiology and values. But first, let me just say that every individual has a set of priorities, a set of values that they live their life by. This is things that are most important to least important in their life. Now, whatever that set of priorities is, whatever is highest on the value list in this priority list is something that they will spontaneously do. They're inspired spontaneously to go and fulfill it. As you go down the list of values, you have a higher probability of needing motivation, incentives, reminding, and push to get you to do it. I always say that motivation, external motivation, is a symptom of an uninspired goal. There's intrinsic drive, which I call spontaneous activity, and there's extrinsic drive, where you have to have motivation from the outside. I don't need motivation to go and research and teach. I would probably need motivation to cook and drive and maybe work out or something extensively. Whatever's highest on your value is the thing that you're going to spontaneously do. And if you set a goal that is aligned to that, you have the highest probability of achieving that goal. But if you set a goal that is lower on your value list, way lower, you decrease the probability of achieving it. Your ratio achievement is proportionate to how high up on the value list the goal happens to match the values. So let me just explain that again. When we are doing something that's extremely high in our values, which is most important to us, the blood glucose and oxygen goes into the forebrain. And our forebrain has foresight. And it also has inner vision, strategic planning, the desire to execute the plans, and also self-governance, the ability to monitor our emotional distractions, the impulses for things that are pleasurable that can distract us, and the instincts from pain that can distract us. So whenever we're setting a goal that is congruent and aligned with what we value most, we have the highest probability of achievement. And we also have the highest probability of setting an objective goal. An objective goal is different than a subjective fantasy. So an objective goal is something that has objectivity, which means even-mindedness, which means that we're pursuing something that's balanced in its orientation. Let me give you an example. A young boy who loves video games loves to pursue the game, conquer the game, and the second he conquers the game, he goes and pursues a greater game, a more sophisticated game, a more challenging game. He's not shrinking from challenge, he's pursuing challenge. That means he's willing to embrace the pains and the pleasures in the pursuit of the purpose of mastering the game. So whenever you're setting a goal that is truly aligned with what you value most, you'll embrace pleasure and pain equally in the pursuit. But whenever you're setting a goal that is lower on your value list, you have a higher probability of doing it if it's easy and not doing it if it's difficult. In other words, you can take the boy and he can sit down and do his video games, and the second he conquers his video game, he's going to go tackle that new one, and he's going to conquer it. He's going to stay there hours until he masters it. But if you ask him to do his chores or his homework, clean his room, he'll procrastinate, he'll hesitate, he'll frustrate, he won't get around to doing it. And it's like, I don't want to bother with it, is what he feels. And so you want to avoid the challenge and only do it if it's really easy. So this is important. Whenever you're living according to your highest values, you embrace pleasure and pain equally in the pursuit of a goal. Whenever you're living in lower values as a result of setting goals that maybe are injected values because of other people you're admiring, things that you fantasize about temporarily that you think you want to do, but you don't really have a high value on it, what you'll do is you'll do it if it's easy, but you won't do it if it's not. Your fulfillment level is going to be proportional to how high up on that value list that goal is. There's an old proverb, but when the why is big enough, the house take care of themselves. When you have a big enough reason for doing it, when it's high enough on your values, you will find the solutions to solve things. You won't stop. Even if it's challenging, you'll go around it, underneath it, through it, whatever way, you'll come out on the other side of it. So it's so important, if you're going to set goals that aren't fantasies, but are real objectives, to set goals that are aligned with what you value most. Now, I've gone over in previous webinars and also on my website, drdemartini.com, the value determination process. I'll be brief on just a reminder of it. But if you look at how you fill your space, how you spend your time, what is it that energizes you? What is it that you spend your money on? Where you have the most order? Where you have the most spontaneous discipline? What is it you think about, visualize, and internally dialogue with yourself about most, about how you want your life that shows evidence coming true? What do you want to converse with other people about most? What is it that you have that are goals that are most persistent, consistent pursuing and achieving? And what is it you love reading about, studying about, learning about, listening to about most? If you look at what those are the things you have the highest probability of setting an objective, a balanced goal that you'll achieve in the executive center. So I tell people, don't waste your time on goals that aren't truly inspiring, aren't truly meaningful, aren't truly highest on your values, because you'll probably procrastinate, hesitate, frustrate. You won't have the fulfillment pursuing them. You'll do it if it's easy. If it starts to get difficult, you'll want to beat yourself up and stop. You'll think you're sabotaging and you feel like there's something in the way, and you'll give excuses. Whenever you're setting goals that are low on your values, you give excuses, and you don't really want to do it because it's not high enough of a drive to push you over the challenges that you face. Every goal, if it's truly a goal, will automatically anticipate what are the obstacles and challenges you're going to face and mitigate those and mitigate the risks by thinking in advance with foresight, what are you going to do to solve it? And anytime something's really low on your value, you won't take the time to plan. You won't even get into the executive center to know how to plan. When you're doing goals that are low on your values, you don't get in the executive center. Your blood and glucose don't go there. They go into the amygdala. And the amygdala is about avoiding pain, seeking pleasure, avoiding predator, seeking prey, avoiding difficulty, seeking ease. In the process of doing it, you keep pursuing the easy path, the fast path, the immediate gratification, the addictive behaviors, the compulsive behaviors, the consuming behaviors. And this is where fantasies begin. A fantasy is the pursuit of a one-sided outcome. Now, in my Breakthrough Experience program, I talk about some of the most common fantasies that people live by. I'm going to reiterate a few of those. Anytime you have a goal that's involving another person and you expect them to live in your values, not their own values, you have a fantasy. And there's probability you're going to be let down. You're going to end up with a quote, betrayal. Anytime you expect some human being other than yourself to go and live in a one-sided manner, always be up, never down, always kind, never cruel, always positive, never negative, always peaceful, never wrathful, you're going to be let down. They're a human being with a set of values, and if you support their values, they're nice. If you go against their values, they're challenged, and they can be mean. So anytime you're setting a goal that involves another person that is not aligned with their values, and it's a projection of your values, and it's not balanced, and you're expecting a one-sided outcome, or a combination of those two, you're guaranteed to be let down, because it's just a matter of time before the person will play out the other side, and they're not going to be dedicated to it. Nobody's dedicated to your values, they're dedicated to their own values. Then you also have a one-sided fantasy that you can project on yourself. You can set a goal to be up, never down, positive, never negative, peaceful, never wrathful, kind, never cruel. And anytime you set a goal that's one-sided on yourself, you're going to set yourself up for defeat, because that's a fantasy. Anytime you expect yourself to live in somebody else's values, not your values. And this is the common one I see for people that say they want to be financially independent. They say that, but that's not where their values are. And they want to buy immediate gratifying consumable goods instead of actually buying something that goes up in value, a true asset. So what happens is if you set a goal that's low on your value and you automatically want to avoid pain and seek pleasure because you're in the amygdala, and you're setting a one-sided fantasy instead of a true objective, which you set when you're in your executive center, you're self-defeating. And a fantasy is the pursuit of a one-sided outcome and a pursuit of something that's not really truly valuable to you, or the pursuit of something that's expecting something from another person that's not really important to them, or expecting from society, collectively, a one-sided outcome, or expecting society to live in your values. That's another fantasy. Or expecting mechanical objects around you to do that. You sometimes have a goal that's a fantasy that you expect a computer is supposed to read your mind and is supposed to give you a positive cash flow when you're overspending. In other words, you want to make sure that you're setting real goals that are real objectives, that are really balanced, that are truly congruent and really aligned to what you value most, or you're going to self-defeat. I teach a class every year in multiple countries called Master Planning for Life. And just like I do in the Breakthrough Experience, I also make sure that people set goals, or I entice them to set goals that are real. Many people, I'll say, are you really committed to that goal? Is there any evidence whatsoever that that's committed? And they'll look at me and I'll ask them, what have you done that shows evidence that that's coming true, or that you're really committed to that? And I would say that probably 30% of the goals that are so-called goals that people say, even if I don't push them to make sure that they're thinking through and making sure that they're setting real goals, they want to set fantasies. They want the dopamine high, the pleasure high of a fantasy. And I had a guy the other day that said that he was going to reach 10 billion people and he's going to be a billionaire. And I've seen many people that have said that. But they're having it in a very short period of time, and they don't have a strategy. And if they don't have a strategy and they have an unrealistic time frame, and it's not something that's truly high in their values, it can be very, you might say, disappointing. I'd say it. But if you're really committed to it and your life is showing it, and you're showing that you're marking and measuring it. One of the signs that you're really committed to something is you're metricing the progress. I keep records of all the radio, the television, the newspaper, the magazines, the webinars, the podcasts, the live seminars, the workshops, the keynote speeches, all the TV shows, all the television movies that we've done. I keep record of every single one of them and look at what is the estimated number of people we're reaching. And then I keep an inventory of how many people we've touched with each of those vehicles. Because if I really am committed to something, I want to metric it. And that's a sign of a real goal. You want to metric it. You want to get feedback. You want to ask what worked and what didn't work each day. You want to refine it. You want to keep pursuing it, and you're not letting anything stop you from it. If you give up on something the second it gets challenging, it's a whim, it's a fantasy, it's not really true to you. You don't stop. There's no such thing as failure to something that's truly high in your value that's obtainable. Because if it's really high enough for your value, you take whatever challenge you get and turn it into a feedback, and it doesn't become an obstacle. It becomes a feedback to get you closer to the goal. So a real goal is objective. Objectivity means it's even-minded. It's not partial or subjectively bias-minded. But if you're setting a fantasy, it's bias-minded. It's a pleasure without a pain. It's a nice without a mean, etc. I had a person that said that they were going to be nothing. They're going to stop arguing. They're going to start, yelling at people, screaming at people. They're going to be totally dedicated to peace. And I just looked at that and I go, well, for one, that's not reality. Two, that's fantasy. Three, they're doing it because they've been wounded and hurt in the past. And a lot of the fantasies that they said are because of pains in the past. And I said, is that real? Are you likely to do that? Well, I'd like to do it. I said, but I'm not interested in what you like to do. Is it real? I've not met anybody that can honestly look me straight in the eye and say that they have peace without conflict or nice without mean. If I went to you and I said, you're always nice, you're never mean, you're always kind, you're never cruel, you're always positive, never negative, you would immediately go, no. Sometimes you're nice, sometimes you're mean, sometimes you're kind, sometimes you're cruel. So don't set a goal that's not balanced. Don't set a goal that's not obtainable. In Buddhism, the Buddha was supposed to have said that the desire for that which is unavailable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is the source of human suffering. Think about that. If you're striving to go get to be a one-sided person, imagine if I get up and said, okay, from now on, I'm going to be nothing but smiles. I'm never going to frown again. Delusion. I'm going to frown. I'm going to smile. My body's made for both. I'm going to have things that support and challenge me, and I'm going to sometimes have reactions to it. You have to set a goal that's real if you want to obtain it. And you have to set something that's truly meaningful, something inspiring and something high in your value if you want to obtain it. And you have to make sure that you chunk it down into small enough bites. Because if you have a goal that's overwhelmingly big, I want to make $1 billion. Okay, that's great. I'm all for that. But the question is chunk it down. What are you going to do? If you have this massive goal and you don't have any chunked action steps to get it, very high probability of it being outrageous. It's not going to be done. But if you actually take the big goal and chunk it down and mind map it down, chunk it down into smaller and smaller and smaller daily action steps, you have a higher probability of doing it. And it's no longer a fantasy. If you have a goal and it's not chunked down into small bites, it's not linked to your highest values, it's not balanced, and it's not really something that you show evidence in your life that you're committed to it, you got a fantasy. And that's self-defeating. Anytime you set a goal that's not really, you're not committed to, and you procrastinate, hesitate, frustrate, and you don't get past the resistance there, you're going to beat yourself up. And then the weeks are going to go by and you're going to go, the goal's not happening. And it's wise. I reassess some of the goals that I've had over the years. And there's been many goals that I've set out for that I've achieved and I've been committed to. And then there's others that I find down the line, somewhere down within 6 months to a year, I go, I have no evidence of it happening. Am I really committed to that? Is it really, really important to me? And at the time it seemed to be, but I'm not seeing any evidence. So I'll do one of two things. I'll reassess it and look at it and put it in kind of a storage bin and come back to it and take a look at it a year from now or 6 months from now. And do I still have an interest in that, or is that just a temporary whim? And I find out that probably a percentage of those, I don't know, maybe 10% of the goals that I've set over the years have been things that I thought were important to me. And then 6 months to a year later, I have no evidence. And a year later, still no evidence. So if there's no evidence, you might as well just let it go or put it in a storage bin and take a peek at it periodically and stick to the ones that are really committed. It's wiser to have fewer goals that are committed than a whole bunch of stuff that's overwhelming. I learned many, many years ago from Walter Haley and also from Louise Hay and many others that if you're going to set a goal, set fewer goals that are truly meaningful, that are in small bites, because by the inch it's a cinch, and then just stick to the ones and make sure you're making progress on them and focus on them. And if it's not really, really important to you and you're not focusing on it, then let them go. Don't sit there and hold on to something and create a goal overrun. A goal overrun is when you're overwhelmed by a whole bunch of goals that accumulate. In my early 20s, I had this day journal, Jack Boland's day journal, master mind journal. And I would write down things, and I looked back over about a year of doing it and kept inventory on it. And I found out that probably 80% of them were coming true in some form or fashion, but a good 20%, 10 for sure, 20% sometimes were things that I kept rolling over and rolling over and rolling over. And I thought, okay, well, these are obviously not as crucial to my life as I thought. So I got a choice here. I can delegate it to somebody else and get it done. I don't have to do it. I can get things done that I want in my life without having me to do it by delegating. And boy, that led me to a whole lot of things that I go, okay, I want it done. Is it really important? Is it important for me to do it? If it's not high in my values, could I find somebody that has a high set of values that will get it done and just pay them to do it and get it done? And I'm getting it done without me having to do everything. And that was a breaker. That added another 10% of my goals into action by surrounding myself with people that could do some of the things that I want done, but it didn't have to be done by me. It wasn't the highest priority, but it was important to do. And that opened up some things and transformed some fantasies that weren't going to get done without delegation into it. And then I chunked them down into smaller bites and put more reasonable time frames on some. And I found out that I got a lot done when I broke it down into little baby steps. And I just took a 10-minute a day or 20-minute a day project and I started working on it a little bit every day. I found it gets done. But the key was to make sure it was really, truly objective. And I thought through, and I had to think of what are the obstacles? If I stopped and go, what are the obstacles? Because a lot of people are into positive thinking, which you know my feelings about. I think it's an incomplete model and I think it's misleading people. I think that that if you go out there and you only look at all the positives and only think of the positives and don't think of some of the downsides and don't prepare for what's happening, you're not prepared and you're not really doing foresight. And the thing that makes us different from the animals is meaning, planning, foresight, following inspirations, pursuing something that's regardless of pain or pleasure. And the animals don't do that. They're only going to fight and tackle challenge if they think there's more advantage and disadvantage. So they're driven by a pleasure seeking and avoiding some pain. So the thing that makes us unique is this pre-planning, foresighting, anticipating it, meditating on the evils, you might say, the downsides in advance. You know, I was involved in the movie The Secret, as you know, many years ago. And it's passing now. It's around 13, almost 14 years ago. And what's interesting is there were people there that thought, oh, I only want to focus on the positives. But I find that they're unprepared. And I found out that the people, you know, would come to me and say, well, I watched The Secret and it says don't focus on the negatives. And I said, well, if you want to do that, that's fine. In some cases, some things come true. But at the same time, I'd rather think of what could go wrong, what I need to do, prepare for it. And once I'm prepared for it, I usually find I get more done. You probably know when every year when they have hurricanes or cyclones in different parts of the world, when they announce it and get everybody prepared, usually there's less devastation and less people injured. When they just don't even give anybody any warning or whatever, and they just assume optimism, that's usually when that gets nailed. People get hurt by it or left in the floods. So I'm a firm believer in anticipating what could go wrong, thinking about it, preparing for it. And then once the preparation and the insurance is in place, usually it doesn't even happen. And then you're prepared and and anytime you're having a challenge that you're inspired to handle, you're prepared for, you think out the contingency plans, you usually get them done. I had we have a president of the United States, Donald Trump, and there's all kind of mixed emotions about the guy. Many people have things they like about him and people dislike him. But the reality is the guy was preparing for things in advance when he was in business. Now, I don't know. I don't see as much of that now when he's in politics. But in business, he was thinking, what could go wrong? How do I solve it? Be prepared. And he was prepared. And he built a big business because of it. So I'm a firm believer that it's wise to have, contingency plans in place. What if this happens? What do you do? What if this happens? When they go to shoot up into space and they go to the space station, they go do a Mars trip like they've just done, or they just go to with a Voyager that just broke out of the interstellar space this week. They took the best minds they could to think of every possible thing that could go wrong. They prepared contingency plans for each, and they did everything they could to just reduce those things, those challenges. And to me, that's a real goal. A goal is something that you've anticipated what could go with foresight. You're not waiting for trial and error and, I wasn't prepared for that, and then slam by it, and then unprepared and then react. They're acting and proactive. And I think that that's something that you really, really, really love to do something. That's one of the reasons I've been master planning and laying out plans for my life. I have a massive plan book. It's literally thousands of pages. It's 4,000 something, almost 500 pages now. And it's basically all the things that I set out to do starting back in 1972. And I've been building this planning book all along. And I think about what is it I want? What are the things that I would love to see? Day by day, I document and I put things in it. I'm a firm believer in updating it that way. I do it daily. And I document what I've accomplished and I put it in metric and what I haven't accomplished. And that gives me feedback at the end of the day. Are the goals that I've set out, is there any indication of it? If there's no indication of it, then I need to readjust what I'm strategizing to get it, or I need to let it go. It's a fantasy. I need to dump the thing. It's not obviously high enough on my values to pursue. But most of the goals, great 90% of them are happening. Some of them I've had to delegate and get other people to do. Some are things that I've had to metric and move forward on. Some are taking much longer. And I realize if you're going to set a goal, it's actually wise to set a goal and look at the date you set it, the date you want it accomplished, and then look actually on the date you achieved it. If you find out that all the goals that you've set out for were achieved sooner than what you thought, you're underestimating your capacity in getting things done faster. And if it's taking much longer, that means you're probably manic when you wrote it and a little more optimistic, and you probably didn't think of the contingency plans, and you probably didn't have it the highest on your value. You had other things that kept coming up that were taking up time and space in your mind. So by metricing it and by looking back and finding out when it's actually achieved versus the date you're planning on it being achieved, you can get a better idea and set real goals in real times that have real plans. And I'm a firm believer that is way more brilliant. That's why I take the time. I'm amazed at how many people say they want to do things and they don't take the time to plan. They plan a vacation more than they plan their life. And I think that that's a bit crazy. The people, they've proven that in studies that people do plan, and they plan things that are really valuable to them, that are really objectively planned. They get more done. I mean, on the Brooklyn Bridge, the Great China Wall, anything that's massive that's been done that's amazing had planning, and they had foresight, and they didn't just leave it to whims and just kind of go ad hoc. There's many things that do, occur spontaneously ad hoc, and they get done. I'm not saying they don't, but at the same time, you get way more done if you actually think things through and make sure things are really meaningful to you. If I ask people if they set a goal, I said, well, what's the evidence? And it really confronts them. They don't want to sometimes even look at it. But are you spontaneously doing this every day? Is there evidence that you're making progress on it? Is this something you're really committed to? Or is this just a fantasy? And, that people want to hold on to their fantasy sometimes because of a nice dopamine rush they get and their serotonin feeling they get. But if it doesn't come true, what good is it? Getting a high like that and then having a letdown. I had a great mentor, Monty Pendleton. And I don't see him every month. I may see him only once a year or twice a year. But the gentleman really asked and put something in my mind about almost 30 years ago. We used to go to lunch at that time more regularly because I was in Houston more. And he's in his 90s today. He's one of the most amazing men that I've met in my life. He's one of the Silver Fox advisors. George Bush Sr. was also one of them in the same group. And he's the one that created the Sun Company. And it's an international company that when you look out of a window, you can see out, but looking in, it has a mirror image or a colored image. He's the one that invented that. And he used to take lunch and he'd say, John, I have a list of your goals. What's the status? And every year he'd take me out and says, what's the status of the goals? Are these real goals or these fantasies that you wrote down and already forgot about them? And that was really helpful. It made me kind of accountable. If you don't have somebody holding you accountable on the goals and you're not holding yourself accountable, then the probability of some of those things fading and probably dismissing and they're just whims are very high. But what he did is he kept them. The goal, he said, well, I'm going to see your goals. I did the same thing with Mark Victor Hansen 34 years ago. And we used to exchange goals on a regular basis. And then we'd sit down and have a meeting. We'd go, okay, what's the status of this one? What's the status of this one? What's the status of this one? And it would be humbling times. I was in a mastermind group in Houston, Texas many years ago, which is where I met Monty. And the only way to stay in the group was to get done what you committed to weekly. So at the end of the meeting, everybody had to present what they were committed to get done between now and next week. And if you didn't get it done, you're out. Extreme high accountability. So that would make you really go, okay, what am I really going to be committed to this week? And what am I not going to let myself down on? And that was amazing to hold yourself accountable. And then you would go back when you know you had accountability like that, you know, what am I really going to do here? If I don't get it done, I'm out. And I don't want to be out of this group. This is a very powerful group. I mean, that mastermind group was some of the most movers, shakers that I'd known in Houston at the time. Very successful individuals and very high achieving. And you didn't want to be out of that group. So you set what you were going to do, and then you went out and did it. So having accountability and having some mentor around you, some coach, if you will, can help, or having some sort of a pre-planned regiment of accountabilities and checklist to make sure you're getting things done can help. But you don't want to set something that's not high in your values. You don't want to set something that's one-sided. You don't want to set something that hasn't been chunked down. You don't want to set something that hasn't been pre-planned and with objectives and mitigated the risks and obstacles. And if you haven't asked, what are the obstacles? I have in one of the 7 questions that you want to ask yourself every day, what is it I would absolutely love to do in life? How do I get handsomely paid to do it? Because if you're not getting paid to do it, your vocation aren't the same. What are the highest priority action steps I can do today to make it happen? What obstacles might I run into? How do I solve them in advance? What worked and what didn't work today? How did I do it? How can I do it more effectively and efficiently from the feedback from what worked and what didn't work? And how did whatever happened today, how's it helping me get there? How's it help me achieve this goal? Those 7 questions are very powerful. I'm going to say them again. What is it I would absolutely love to do? What is my life demonstrating that I'd absolutely love to do? See, I love traveling the world teaching. I've demonstrated that. I don't let myself down on that. I get that done every day. I did another 300 speeches plus this year. And I don't let myself down on that. So that's obviously valuable to me. It's obviously something I'm willing to embrace the pain and pleasure of the pursuit of. And I have metrics on it. So you want to make sure that it's something that's truly valuable to you, not just a fantasy, but really something that you love to do. And your life is demonstrating evidence that you're moving towards it. Then what is it what are the way to get paid for it? How do I get handsomely, beautifully paid to do it? Don't ask, how do I afford to do it? How do I get paid to do it? That's a very powerful. How do I get paid to do the next action step in my business? How do I get paid to do that next tour? How do I get paid to go and get educated at? Whatever it is you would love to do, how do you get paid to do it? What are the action steps that will help you make that happen? The highest priority actions. Anytime you're doing the highest priority actions, the ABCs, you grow in self-worth. Anytime you're doing lower priorities, you grow, you devalue your worth, you go down in worth. So make sure that you're going after something that's really important to you, extremely important to you, and you won't let yourself down. You won't have a fantasy. You won't, you'll plan. Your executive center comes online. When the second you see something that's really important to you, you see it in a vision, and you can go and do it. Any detail that you've left out of your vision that hasn't been planned usually becomes an obstacle. So I can't imagine some greatness or anything that's really highly important achieved that didn't have a plan. And so that's why I do master planning every year. That's why I do master planning for myself every day. I've probably done more planning than anybody I've ever met in my life, in the sense of thing. I have a director that also works with me, Clarissa. She's a very detailed, foresighting, planning person, preparing. That's why she gets a lot done. But if you go and you do something that is very, very high in your priorities, and you plan it like that and foresight it, you are leading yourself as a human, not an animal. An animal learns by trial and error only, and has to go and get smacked by the predator that's unexpected. But if you go and do that, and you then go and look, what obstacles what can I run into, and how do I solve them in advance? What worked, what didn't work today? How do I do it more effectively tomorrow? And how do I get handsomely paid to do it? And no matter what happened, how is it going to help me get there? These are very powerful action steps you can do every day. If you write those down and put them on a mirror and put them in your bathroom every day and read those every day, I assure you, you're going to get more done and less fantasies. Again, a fantasy is a one-sided outcome. Something is not linked to your highest value. Something hasn't been chunked down into small bites, broken down into some manageable bites. Something that hasn't been built momentum. Something that you're not necessarily wanting to metric. When people love doing their work and they're inspired and engaged at work, they love to be measured. When people aren't inspired by what they do and it's low in their values, they don't like to be measured. A sign that you really have a goal is you love measuring the outcome, and you're seeing, okay, how far did I get today towards that goal? You have a bar graph or some sort of a metric on it on a daily basis. And I love doing that. I love keeping records of all the media and the radio and the television, the media, how many people we're reaching. We're reaching millions and millions of people that way. And it's very inspiring. So it's fun to metric it, to see the progress you're making. The same thing with income and economics. When I set financial goals instead of fantasies, I want a metric. I had a lady that came up to me just the other day, and she says, well, I have a very high value on wealth building. I said, really? I said, how's the wealth doing? What's your net worth at this point? And she said, well, I haven't gotten to save anything yet, but I have a high value in it. I'm studying about it. I'm reading about it. I said, but are you actually saving and investing money? She goes, not yet. I can't get around to it. I keep having unexpected bills and things keep happening like that right now. I said, well, it sounds like you have a value on learning about wealth, not building wealth. And she just looked at me and stared at me for a second. And she goes, whoa, is it possible that I could actually have a value on learning about it and not actually building it? I said, absolutely. Many people have goals that their life demonstrates that they love learning about it, but they're not doing anything about it. And she goes, wow, I think that's real for me. I think that's what's happening. I said, if you don't have a structure, a strategy, a plan, and you're not implementing it, and you're not metricing it, and you're not making progress on it, and you're not growing wealth on a daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly basis, you're not committed to it. It's a fantasy, probably. She goes, wow, I think I just realized the difference between a fantasy and a goal. And I said, exactly. So if you don't have evidence, that's the most important thing. That's just, when I would go and do value determination, I want to look at what has evidence. What are you seeing and visualizing that has evidence? What are you thinking about that has evidence? What are you talking about that has evidence? If there's no evidence, there's no reality to it. And if you're not measuring that evidence, you're not committed to something. So a real goal is basically that would be really important that way. I'm seeing some questions come in. It says, I'd like to have all questions. Is it possible, please? I'm going to do it again. What is it you would absolutely love to do? How do you get handsomely and beautifully paid to do it? You can watch this video again, by the way. What are the 6, 7, or highest priority actions you can do today that will allow you to do that? Move you one step closer towards that. What obstacles might you run into, and how do you solve them in advance? What worked and what didn't work today? How do I do it more effectively and efficiently? And how did whatever happened today help me move towards this objective? If you ask that, you'll go farther. But don't waste your time on goals that show no evidence. Don't waste your time on goals that aren't really important to you. I had said jokingly in my seminar sometimes, oh, I'd love to be an international sex symbol and be like, Hugh Hefner or something like that. And I go, yeah, but I don't have any evidence of that. There's no evidence whatsoever in my life of that. But if I say that I want to be an international speaker, traveling the world speaking and learning and studying, and I have a tremendous amount of evidence around that. So if you're setting goals that have no evidence, no history, nothing in that direction, you're probably setting up a fantasy. And you're not going to get as far setting up fantasies. Fantasies create nightmares. Fantasies create phobias. Fantasies make you leave yourself vulnerable because you're basically looking at only the positive and getting a dopamine and get a serotonin high, and you're not prepared. And then you get slammed, and then you get the nightmares and the distractions. And then you want to go, you associate that with the fantasy, and you go, oh, it must not be meant to be. I remember speaking at a church one time, and a lady came up to me and she says, well, I tried to get wealthy, but it just, no matter what I did, something always came up and I always had to pay bills and I had to pay other people. And she didn't know that she didn't have a value on wealth building. She didn't know that she had a fantasy. And she was thinking, well, it must not be meant to be. If God wanted me to be rich, it would make me rich. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's delusional. I think that if you really if you want to build something, if you really want something to happen, stack up enough reasons for doing it, and you'll increase the probability of doing it. When the why is big enough, the hows take care of themselves. If you got a big enough reason for doing something, you'll do it. I got a big enough reason to travel the world and teach. I'm doing it. If I didn't have a big enough reason to do it, I wouldn't do it. If you have a goal, if you have a big enough reason to do it, you will see evidence of it manifesting, and you will achieve it. And you will probably upgrade it and expand it and achieve more as you go. That's a sign that it's really important to you. You're pursuing it, you're achieving it, you're expanding it, and you're achieving secondary and tertiary goals on top of that are associated with it. That's a sign of a real goal, not a fantasy. And breaking through fantasies is breaking through things that aren't important to you, that aren't chunked down, that are one-sided, that you got because you're envious of somebody else and you feel like you got to have it. If you hear yourself saying, I should, I ought to, I'm supposed to, I got to, I have to, I must do this goal, it's not yours. If you're not inspired by it, you don't love doing it, you're not spontaneously doing it, you're not making effort on it, you're not measuring it, it's not really important to you. And you got to face that. Quit pursuing fantasies that make you feel like you're sabotaging. Why am I not doing it? What's wrong with me? You're designed to beat yourself up when you set a goal that's not yours. I'd rather have fewer goals that are really, really important to me than a pile of goals that aren't. And I did. In my 20s, I was just stacking up on the Jack Bowen list. I had way more goals than were humanly possible. I was beating myself up because I wasn't getting them done. I had goal overrun. I feel like it wasn't getting done. And it wasn't until I really hit about 30 when I did a presentation for Mary Kay and Mary Kay Cosmetics. And she says, write down the 6 or 7 highest priority actions that day that can get them done on the dreams that you have. And don't stack them up and overwhelm yourself. And then have, at the end of the day, a feeling like I never can get this list done. Just get the highest priority ones, the most important ones done, and every day do the highest priority. If you ask yourself, what is the highest priority action I can be doing right now to fulfill the most important thing in my life, and go and do that. And make sure it's a chunk down daily action so you can get it done that day. And then once that's done, if it takes you 5 hours, what is the next highest priority action step I can be doing right now that I could get done this day, and chunk it into small bites. And if you're really committed to it, you'll get yourself into action on it. You'll do it, and you'll get amazing things done that way. Then what's the next highest priority thing I can do? If you go to, Gary Keller wrote The One Thing, the book, and that's a great little book on the one thing you can do. I've been doing 6 or 7, but you can do the one thing, and you probably get even more done. But you want to prioritize it, make sure it's really important to you. So if you find that at the end of a year, there's been nothing done on a goal, 5 years you've done nothing on it, time to reassess. I mean, I wouldn't even go that long, 6 months. If you haven't got anything done on that goal, either the goal needs to be delegated, it needs to be tossed, it's not really prioritized, or you need to strategize it and break it down into small enough bites. But if you're really serious about something, you'll get it done. That's why I say start with what you know and let what you know grow. Start with the goals that are absolutely, sincerely evident that you're going to make happen. I read. I do a lot of studying. I read every day. I read a couple books on the way over here from Sydney. And I'm constantly wanting to fill my mind with new ideas. I'm constantly wanting to share those ideas with people. I love traveling. If I look at what my life demonstrates and I set goals that are in that area, I usually get the most done. But if I set up a fantasy about something that's out peripherally, it's outside my core competence, outside what I have any evidence of demonstrating, I usually go up and it's just a whim and it's temporary. Now that doesn't mean that I can't expand into that, but I usually find if it's somehow an emerging value and I stack up enough reasons for doing it, then I study about it, I want to learn about it, I want to mentor under it, I want to interact with it. I'm showing evidence in my value system that it's important. By doing that, you get more done. So if you want to have something go up on a value, stack up general benefits, that it'll rise up in values. You know, in the master planning program, I have 2,000 questions I ask people to help them bring out of them things they would never even know to ask themselves, to help them get clear about what it is that they want, to help them actually focus on it, and to make sure that they've chunked it down in small enough bites, and to make sure that it's aligned to the values and it's objective. And it even has contingency plans and what could go wrong and how do I solve it, and what could go wrong and how can I solve it. If you're not taking the time to think it through like that, you're probably going after some whims. So at the end of the year, you just got to measure what you set out to do, and then you got to look at what you actually did. If it's a very low rate, you're setting fantasies and you're self-defeating and you're beating yourself up in the process. But if you're setting it up and you're achieving it and you're getting it done, I remember a gentleman named Rusty that was at my master planning program a few years ago in Houston, Texas. And he was very methodical and very diligent in his planning. I was impressed by his detail. Not everybody did it as detailed as he was, but he was really detailed. At the following year, he came back. He's been to master planning, I think, 8 times doing things. He's running a major company now. And he came back and he found out that the very goals that he set the year before, when his accountant sent the numbers on the beginning of the year from that previous year, the numbers matched. I mean, he was that diligent and detailed. I can't say and claim that every time for me. Some of them matched, but not like this. They were exact matches. That means he had read that goal. It was so important to him. He had read that goal on a regular basis. He focused on that goal. He refined himself along the year towards that goal. He got the goal. And that's rewarding, to set out for something and achieve something that's extremely meaningful, that's inspiring, that's high in your values, that's objective, that you're metricing and you're following and you're getting it done. It's not the end, it's not the achievement of the goal. It's also the journey along that way of metricing and watching it and unfolding it. I keep records, as I said, of every different talk I do, and I total them up. And I broke 312. I think we got 5 more. So, this makes one now, but then there's 5 more to go before the end of the year. So I'm going to have, I broke the 300 mark again. I set that goal. I beat that thing again. But it's basically an objective you set out for. I set out for, at the beginning of the year, I write down all the number of breakthroughs I want to do, prophecies of program, all the programs that I want to do, master plannings, everything else. We map it all out. And then I work on it. We schedule it. We organize it. We make it happen. We have a goal on how many people attend and how many, and the revenue that's generated. And I mean, I take that every year. I'm about to go on my ship in a few days. And when I do, I map out for the following year what I want. I master plan that out. And then I metric it throughout the year. And sometimes I get things I didn't anticipate and I can add to it. And sometimes I need to step it up. And as I'm going along, I'm realizing I'm falling behind on something. I need to step it up. But I now can monitor it because I'm metricing it. So again, if you really want something, a real goal and not a fantasy, these are the character traits: objective, clear vision, handling objections, mitigating risks, metricing it down, chunking it down, small bites, daily actions, and you show evidence of it, and it inspires you. And when you write it, it gives you a tear in the eye. because that's when it's meaningful. If it brings a tear to your eye when you write it, it's meaningful. And you map it out, and you can see it in your mind's eye, and when you write something that's really true, you'll feel that it's impossible for you not to accomplish. You'll feel it's destined. You'll see it in your mind's eye. You'll be inspired by it. You'll have energy, and you'll want to go and do it. And you don't procrastinate. You don't hesitate. You don't frustrate. You just go do it. That's a sign you have a real goal. And if you don't have those, you probably have a fantasy. And you're probably going to beat yourself up and miss out on the magnificence of some of the things that you can achieve. Anyway, I thought I would go through those principles and speak for about 45 minutes. I do it a few minutes over. And now there's some great questions come in. Hey guys, most webinar presenters will send out a mailer the following day to a link, the recording version of the webinar. I don't have that, but I believe that this will be available for at least a week or so. So if you contact our website, you can get the details on that. There'll be information about it at the end also. So yes, these are available. If you didn't get everything I said, or if you came on a little bit late, you can keep watching this afterwards. It says, what do you do if you don't have a goal? How do you find one? Okay, that's an interesting one. Well, everybody has a goal. They may not have written it down on a piece of paper. They may not have typed it up. They may not have had it, but they all have something that they're striving for. Spiritually, mentally, career, financial, family, social, physical. In master planning, we write out in all of them. I want people to have a master plan when they're planning it. I want them to have a business plan, a financial plan, a family plan, a social plan, a health plan, an educational and learning plan, a mystical, spiritual plan, a social plan, and health and fitness plan. I want them to have all of them. I would say that a person who masters their life masters all of them. When I was 18, I set out to master all 7. I wanted to have original ideas that serve the world. I want to have an international business. I want to have financial independence. I want to have a global family relationship. I want to have social influence and meet amazing people. I want to have a physical vitality. I'm 64 and I'm doing pretty good on that. And I'm also want to be inspired and bring spiritual insights to people around the world. Not necessarily religious dogma, but just inspirational information for people. And all those have come true. Those are all reality today. So it'd be impossible to convince them you can't master plan your life and can't get the outcome you want. But you want to set it, whatever it is, write down what you want in life. If you sit down, a lot of people are afraid to write goals because they set up fantasies, they don't come true, they beat themselves up, and it's painful, and they don't want to write a goal. And they go around and saying, well, you want to make God laugh, tell him your goals. That to me that's a sign you don't know what you're doing on goals. And that's one of the reasons I put this webinar together, to help speed that up. How do you suggest setting these goals actually without living in the delusion? Well, again, I've said most of it. Start with what you know, that you know your life demonstrates, that you're committed to doing, and that you are chunking it down into small enough bites to make it happen. And if you've got a delusion, there'll be no evidence. You'll hesitate on it. You won't see a path that we're doing it. Nothing will happen from it. That's one way. I had something. Let me go back here. I can't go back. It says, if you have a fantasy, is there anything wrong with having a fantasy? Well, the way I define a fantasy is a one-sided thing, a pleasure without a pain, a happy without a sad, a kind without a cruel. That's the lowest mentality in the brain, the amygdala, striving for one-sided things. I find the most unfulfilled people are people striving for one-sided outcomes. That's why the Buddha says the desire for that which is unavailable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is the source of human suffering. I gave that up at age 30 after doing a 2-year research project on so-called positive thinking. I gave it up. I even wrote a little book called that I didn't publish yet, but it's a little booklet that basically says I gave up happiness. It made me too sad. The saddest people I know are the people looking for only one-sidedness. And I think you got to have both sides in life. You need support and challenge. You're going to be sometimes praised and reprimanded. You're going to have both in life. If you're not prepared for that, you're not prepared for life. So goals that are balanced or prepared, those are real. So I don't waste my time on one-sided goals. They're fantasies. So if you want to pursue fantasies and find out the hard way, then great. But now, don't think that you can't have something that seems outrageous. I mean, I know somebody that said, well, they want to generate a certain amount of income, and then they created a strategy and they got it. And it was outrageous to people around them. They thought, oh, that's not possible. It's not a fantasy if you got the strategy. It's not a fantasy if you've got it online, your values, and you're willing to work for it. It's not a fantasy if you come up with a way of serving people and generating the kind of income that you're wanting. It's not a fantasy if you do what it takes to get it. It's a fantasy when it's not obtainable, not humanly possible, not in line with your values where you're not acting on it, not chunked into some actions that you know what to do to even move towards it. Those are fantasies. So how do you make sure that you're not setting, I've already said that, I'll be 28 next month. If I set a goal to make 500,000 before I'm 30, what steps do you recommend? Well, first, if you're going to be, that's great. If you have it, that's 2 years, that's 250,000. First, you have to ask yourself, okay, how much do I want to save? How much am I saving right now? How much do I want to save to get that goal? If I want $500,000 net worth by that time, or a $500,000 income, I have to do $500,000 worth of service. Or if I'm saving 10%, I need 5 million made by the next 2 years to save 500,000. I don't know if it's a 500,000 savings or 500,000 income. I don't know, but you have to be real about it. You know, if I'm saving 50% of my gross income, and if I want to have $500,000 at the end of the year, I got to go make $1 million. If I'm saving 10% of my income and I want to make $500,000 at the end of 2 years, I need to make obviously 10 million on that in that period of time, or 5 million in that period of time. Pardon me. So you got to be real, and you got to come up with a strategy and go, well, how are you going to do it? I don't know. I don't know what you would love doing. I don't know what your skills are. I don't know what area of market that you want to, where there's a niche. I don't know that. All I know is that it's unrealistic to expect to go and be financially independent without doing some sort of service for people to earn some sort of income, unless you're going to be trading in the market and you want to do a bit of speculation. In that case, I know people that are doing it with Forex trading and other things. They're generating those kind of income, but they have to start with some money to do trading to do it. I don't know what your love is. I don't know what your values are. I don't know what your skills are. So I don't know if I can give you a direct answer on that. So let's see if I can go. I'm going to go back down here because there's some. It says, how do you set a realistic goals around time and not setting goals too small? Setting a goal to break even in my 3rd year of business, accomplishing that. Okay, well, again, I really don't know the limit of a goal as long as you got a strategy. I mean, if you said, all right, I want to build a business that's $1 billion business in 1 year, if you have the product, the service, or idea, you've got the marketing strategy, you've got the thing that goes viral, you've got the contacts, you've got the management insights, you put together a team, there's a possibility you could do that. I'm not going to negate that. So it's not a fantasy. If you've got the strategy in place, you've got the team together, you've got the plans, you've got everything in place, it's a fantasy if you don't. And so I don't know. Without knowing, when somebody asks me, how do I achieve a goal, without knowing them, without knowing their values, without knowing what jobs they're doing, what careers they're doing, how many hours they're willing to work, I'm guessing. So I can't give you that answer without one-on-one. If you come to master planning and you come and sit with me, and because I do private consulting that entire time I'm in master planning, if you come up there, I can help you put that together, and we can put something. I've found that there were, in the years in the 80s, I was doing a lot of consulting for doctors, and I was amazed at how many incongruent goals. They said they wanted to work so many hours a week, they want to do so many patients, they wanted to do so much per office visit, they want to have so many office visits per week, they wanted to be able to go golfing, they wanted to do this, and I wrote it all out, and it was completely combobulated, and it wasn't congruent, and there was no way that was going to come true. And then I stopped that. This is a totally incongruent goal, and your brain's going to toss it. So fantasies, that's a fantasy. But I got them down. I said, okay, here's your office visit. Here's how many office visits. Here's how much time you spend on the office visit. Here's how many you're going to do. Here's how many people you actually have per visits, per patient. Here's how many patients you do. Here's what your marketing is averaging. And we mapped it out, got it congruent, master planned it out, got them grounded, found out what their comfort level was, how to increment their comfort level, and they were able to create their outcome. But you got to be grounded. You can't just set up fantasies. It says, when am I coming to do in South Africa do master planning? I'm doing master planning. I don't know. At the end of this webinar, I think the date and time that master planning is coming, I think it's coming up February or March. I just don't know. I have to look myself here. What does realistic mean to you? Realistic, somebody asked, Dean Gestall says, what is realistic? Realistic is based on your skill level. It's realistic for me to reach a few 100 million people in a year doing radio, television, newspapers, and magazines. But if I would have said that at age 27, it would have been unrealistic. I've got the strategies, I've got the contacts, I've got the ways of doing it. I know what I'm able to do. I know how to do it today. So it depends on how well you foreplanned it and strategized it and what skills you have and the network you have. That'll all be to determine what's realistic. I don't know. If you get a mentor that's advanced farther along and can give you insights and give you context, and you might expedite that process. That's the value of master planning. I can help expedite your goals. But I don't know what's realistic. You need to ask yourself, do you have the strategy in place where you can see that if I do this, I will get that. If I do this, I'll get that. If I do this, you get that. Now you have a real goal. You only have control over three things in your life: your perceptions, your decisions, and actions. If your goals are not a perception, decision, or action, you have a fantasy. It's got to be something you have control over. People say, well, I want to make $1 million a year. Well, that's fantasy if you don't have a specific strategy doing a specific service that's going to generate certain income at a certain ratio of net profit, et cetera, and that you have control over. You only want to set a goal that you have control over that is, again, a perception, decision, or action. And if it's not that, you don't have control over it. So if I said I wanted to make $100 million and I don't have control over the perception, decisions, and actions or the strategies to do it, fantasy. And all I'm going to do is just tell people something that's fantasy and beat myself up over it. They're always replay. I said that. Let's see if I can find some new ones here. So do you think a fantasy is a good idea? What if it is a goal that you don't know how you will get there, but you really want it, and it excites you, and it makes you grow? Even if it falls short, it will help my development. I don't want you to put a fantasy. I'm not a fantasy promoter. I see every weekend in the breakthrough experience, and sometimes at master planning, I'm amazed how many people have fantasies that don't get done. A goal can be outrageously amazing, but you need to have a way of getting it. If you don't have a way of getting it, if you can ask this question, what is it I would absolutely love to do? How do I get handsome paid to do it? And answer that. What are the action steps I can do? As long as you have an action step that's moving you one step closer towards your goal, you have a higher probability of doing it. And then as long as you're asking what's working and not working, and you're trying to solve obstacles in advance, and you're getting mentorship, if you know somebody that's already got the goal and they've already done it, and you're willing to do the same pathway to get it, and you have the similar values to be able to pull it off, it's not a fantasy. It's only a fantasy when you're not willing to do what it takes. It's not in your values. It's not chunked down. It's not strategized. You don't know where to begin, and you just kind of hope and pray it's going to happen and visualize it. And I have people that say, well, I had a lady that come to me one time after The Secret came out. And she said, I've watched the movie 20 times. I've read the book 6 times. I go out to my mailbox every day, and I still don't know what I'm doing wrong. There's no $1 million check sitting in the friggin' mailbox. And I said, have you considered working? Have you considered strategizing a savings and investment program? I mean, come on, lady. That's fantasy. So, but I don't know what the boundaries of that are. Anyway, it says, is the breakthrough experience a prerequisite for master planning for life? Well, this is Angelina F. that's asked this. It's not absolutely mandatory. I encourage people to come to breakthrough experience. It helps the master planning because there's a lot of insights that the breakthrough is going to have that's going to help that. But I've had many people, thousands of people, come to master planning that did not have breakthrough in advance. If I had a choice, I'd say do breakthrough. If breakthrough comes before it, grab it. If it doesn't, grab it and do breakthrough afterwards. Either way, they're going to help each other. But in master planning, the questions are set up to catch you in your fantasies. So it's going to make sure you're going to write down something that's real, because as you refine it, that's what's so great about master planning. You do it, and as you fill it in, you're now watching that. You now print out that manual. You now read it and refine it and read it and refine it. And if you find that the metrics aren't showing any evidence of it, you refine it. You either redo it, come up with a new strategy or more efficient strategy, get mentorship, or delete it and realize that wasn't really important to you. But this is an ongoing, master plan is an ongoing document. It's not just a seminar, it's an ongoing document that you're going to be working on the rest of your life. My master planning has been going on since 1972, and it grows daily. It's thousands of pages, and I'm constantly updating it, and I love it. It's my favorite. It's the most important book of my life, and that's why it helps out the fantasies over time. And if you look at my mission statement that I put in in master planning, you do your mission statement, you do your posthumous biography of how you want to be perceived 1,000 years from now. What do you actually want to accomplish? What are you actually accomplishing? What is your life truly demonstrating? What are your values? What is it that you have achieved and you've been inspired by? I mean, it's 2,000 questions asking you how to get clear about what you want. And most people never take the time to do that. And to me, I can't imagine going through life without it myself. But it's quite crazy what some people do. Let's see here. What book are you reading right now that can help with fear? Well, I'm not reading a book on fear. This is Mark Guerrero. I think that fear is a feedback system to let you know that you've got a fantasy in your face. When I set a real goal that has a real strategy and I implement that and I accomplish another step every single day, I don't live in fear. I live in accomplishment. But if I set up a fantasy and I hold a fantasy that I'm going to be doing something in the future and nothing happens, and I'm living and I'm expecting money to come out of the world without effort and without serving people and meeting people's needs and meeting the marketplace, and I expect to get wealthy without structuring savings and investments and buying assets. If I'm not doing what it takes to get that, I have fear. I live in fear and anxiety because it's not matching my delusion that I'm holding on to. So I'm not reading any book on fear because I don't focus on fear. I focus on solution. I focus on real goals, and I focus on what I'm inspired by. If you fill your day every day with things that inspire you, you're not in your amygdala where fantasies and phobias are all the time. So I don't, that's not the way I focus it. How can I encourage my teenage child to begin planning? Well, the best teacher is exemplification. I would plan. I'd come to master planning, or I'd start planning out your life, and your teenager will watch that. If I do my plans, my life demonstrates it. When they see you getting results and going, what the hell you're doing to get the results, they're going to be more likely to do it. As Einstein said, greatest teacher is exemplification. If you go out and exemplify, you're going to get the most done. It says, thanks for this session. Really appreciate it that you made the teaching available for free. Well, thank you. Let's see. How do I transition from one industry to another? I went back to school, got a degree in product design, have a good portfolio, but have issues. People see my skill as a designer because I still have to pay bills, still practice makeup artistry. Okay, well, whatever you're doing, if you're in a job that you're got your primary source of income and you have another career that you're attempting to get launched, my advice, some people, if you have some liquid capital and you got enough reserve to go and start the business, then maybe that's one path. You just go out and do it. But if you don't, my advice is to do a number of things. One, take a list of everything that you're doing right now in your business, current business, make a list of them, and then ask, how is doing this right now helping me in my future career? And once you answer that, and don't answer one answer, answer 10 to 20 or more answers per job responsibility. How's it help me get there? If you can see that what you're doing is on the way, not in the way, your energy will go into that more effectively. You'll be more likely to move closer to this objective. And then what you want to do is you want to master plan out the new objective so you know what you're going to do and make sure it serves somebody and earns the income. A lot of people go out of fantasy, don't think of a way it's going to serve people that's not marketed properly. I had a lovely gentleman last night, a really lovely gentleman that I met with in Sydney, who is a very bright gentleman, and he wanted to go out and be involved in teaching, but he didn't package what he had as sufficient as he could. I mean, without a doubt, just talking to him, he was extremely bright. You could see he was dedicated to learning. He had great knowledge. There's no doubt in my mind he could help people, but he hadn't packaged it in a way that met the needs of people. And so he ended up going back to his comfort zone because it was making money. And he about gave up on his goal because he didn't plan it. That's why planning is so important. And but if he planned it out and thought through, and I gave him 5 or 6 questions in a few minutes that we chatted that help him start to think a little differently. And he goes, I know what to do. He saw it, and you could see him getting this vision back because he didn't plan. And so his vision was sitting there. It was a great possible vision. He didn't plan it out. He didn't break it down to small bites, and he didn't meet the needs of people the way he packaged it. And therefore he was stuck. So if you're doing something, I assure you it's on the way. It's not in the way, but you need to plan out what you're doing and make sure it's clear, and then link what you're doing now to get you there. And once this new thing is making you the money or equal money or more money, you'll let go of the other one and say thank you, and you'll see it on the way. Let's see if I can give an example of evidence. Okay, that's a good question. Well, if you have a goal, if I have a goal to earn a certain amount of money this year, and let's say it's $500,000, something like that, $1 million, or even 100,000 or 50,000, doesn't matter how much. If I don't see that at the beginning of the month, at the end of the month, that I'm $4,000 to $5,000 of income, then my metrics are showing that I'm not on track yet. If I show that I had 3, and then the next month I see 4, and the next month I see 5, the next month I see 6, at the end of the year, I'm on track. So evidence is basically metricing what you're doing and making sure you're setting out and getting what you set out to do. If I set out to reach so many people on webinars and podcasts and live TV and radio and all those things, if I don't see any evidence and I'm not metricing those, I'm not going to know what I'm doing. So that's what evidence is. So you're basically measuring what you're getting done. That's really quite lovely. It says, how do you get rid of this inner voice which keeps holding you back? Okay, let me just say something here. Anytime you have negative self-talk, I guarantee you the thing you're pursuing isn't your highest value. It's a fantasy. Negative self-talk is a feedback to you to let you know you're pursuing something that's not really important. Guarantee it. You're trying to be somebody you're not. I had a lady that was having negative self-talk. She says, I keep sabotaging my business. I keep sabotaging my business. Her highest value was raising family. Her highest value was her children. And her children were at still a young age. And she had this fantasy that she was going to start this business, online business, and do this website and do this stuff. And no matter what, her children were taking up all the time, and things were coming up, and she'd have to go and take care of her children and everything else. I said, ma'am, your highest value is your children. You're dedicated to being a mom at this stage, and you're fantasizing about doing a business, but there's no evidence of that being accomplished. This is not real. So either we need to go and find out how the business is going to help you with your children and link it to the children, and how's the spending time with the children going to help your business and make those link, because anytime 2 values are close together, they enhance each other. Or shift values and stack up enough benefits of how stacking up the benefits of building a business right now is so high that it takes precedence over your children, or not over them, but maybe alongside them. But if not, you're not going to do it. And she was beating herself up and wondering why she was sabotaging and not doing it, because it really wasn't highest. It was a fantasy. It's like people saying, I want to be financially independent. 1% make it, 99% don't, but 100% put their hands up when I say how many want to be financially independent. Most people don't know what their values are. That's why I want you to go online and do the value determination process on the website. Get clear about that. Don't waste your time on goals that aren't aligned with your values. It's just going to beat yourself up. What if you spend time and money on addictive behavior? Well, addictive behavior is a compensation for unfulfilled highest values. That is absolutely the most important reason why doing master planning. If you're sitting there distracting yourself with consumerism, buying things and blowing money and getting farther behind in debt, if you're doing addictive behaviors and overeating, if you can't seem to have governance over yourself, That's the reason why master planning can be helpful to you, because it's going to make you go back to your executive center and get congruent with your highest values and make sure you're doing something that's meaningful. If you're not doing something that's meaningful, you're going to go down in your amygdala, and your amygdala is your addictive center. That's where all the dopamine is coming from. That's why you're wanting to go and get a quick fix, because you're unfulfilled. If you don't fill your day with high priority action, aspire, it fills up with addictive behaviors. So yeah, I mean, if you're doing that, it's because you're not planning out what's really important to you. It says, will passion push me forward to achieve my goal? Let me just say something about this. I'm going to confront passion. Passion, go look up right now, whoever's online right now, go up to your little cell phone, go look up the word passion, look up etymology, etymology, passion dash etymology, and look up what the definition means. And it'll blow your mind. Most personal development junkies, gurus out there are talking about find your passion, get passionate, get your passion, da da da. I'm the only one that's probably going to tell you it's not about passion. Passion means to suffer, and compassion means to suffer with somebody by its etymology. So if you want to go suffering, go get passionate. Animals have passion. The animal passions are greed, lust, sloth, immediate gratification, addiction. These are the passions. An inspired mission is different than a passion. I'm going to teach you in all my programs, I'm about inspired missions, not passions. If you want to go and do passions with other people, that's fine. But passions are transient. They're impulse-based. They're instinct avoiding. They're basically transient. They go up, you get a high, you go down. Passions are what usually cause people to lose money in the stock market. They're emotional exuberances. So I know you hear something different than that, but I'm going to lay it straight. Go look it up, read, do your homework, quit just following somebody's statement without thinking it through and learning, and realize that an inspired mission is different than a passion. And a passion is not where it's at. I'm not passionate. I'm an inspired man on a mission. That's a different energy. That's something that you'll endure pain and pleasure in. A passion is avoiding pain, seeking pleasure, and setting up a manic episode and a fantasy episode and rising up with a fantasy and then crashing because you're unprepared and you're basically not preparing things in advance. So I'm not promoting a passion in my seminars. I personally define it and let them understand the distinctions. So if you want an inspired life, you're not going to do it pursuing temporary emotional passions. You're going to do it by being inspired by something that's a spontaneous calling from within, by living congruently with your highest values and setting real goals in real time with real strategies that have real meaning. If you do, you're going to have an inspired life. And people are going to go, oh, wow, you're inspired. It's inspiring being around you. So I blew that one for you. I may as well just hit you. So Dr. DeMartini, if money isn't a true value, how do we link our current values to that? That's a good one. If you have a value on something else, relationships, family, serving people, social causes, or whatever, if you don't have a value on wealth building, not going to happen. I might as well just hit you with reality. My experience, the people that are wealthy and have financial independence have it in the top 3 or 4 values. If it's not there, I didn't have, up until 28, I didn't have a value on wealth building. I had a value on saving money to buy things, buy clothes, buy a car, buy this, buy a trip, buy equipment. I didn't have any value on wealth building until age 28. In 28, I got a wake-up call. I got 10 questions that woke me up about what's really meaningful, which is some of the same 10 questions I do in master planning about finances. That shifted me and made value of wealth building go up on my values. So if you want to go and do that, you want to go and I have the 6 steps to wealth, or come to master planning itself and I'll make you do it. You're going to actually do the exercise in master planning to raise it up and learn how to raise things up on your values. Because money circulates through the economy from those who value it least to those who value it most. If you don't have a value on wealth building, it isn't going to happen. If you have a higher value on buying groceries and buying trips and going to the cinema and buying shoes and clothes and buying seminars and buying this and buying that, or whatever it is, whatever's highest on your value, if it's not linked to wealth building is not going to happen. And you're going to keep spending money on that. I had a lady that was in Dallas And she could not get ahead financially, no matter what she did. She was attending seminars, but I explained to her, unless you have a value in wealth building, it's not going to happen. Well, I do a lot of stuff. I go work really hard, but always something comes up. And I said, well, those things that keep coming up that it's blow your money are things higher on your value than saving. When you really have a value on saving and investing money, you don't let secondary things interfere with it. And so we had to shift her values. We did it in master planning. We also did a breakthrough. And in the process of doing it, she finally got somewhere. Now, she wasn't saving a lot when she started, but it's not how much, it's the habit of doing it. And she increased it as I instructed. In master planning, you actually map out what you're going to save, how you're going to save it, what you're going to do, what's your strategies on doing it. So you break away the fantasies and you get somewhere. And the people that I know, I was doing the master planning in Sydney, Australia 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. Pardon me, it'll be 4 years now, coming this February. And I asked the group, there was about 120 people attending, and I asked, how many of you right now have started your financial plan from either master planning or from the prophecy program thing? I was blown away. I was expecting about 40% or something like that. 87% of the people had initiated it, partly from master planning that they'd previously done or prophecy program. Unbelievable. I was blown away. 87% were on track with a consistent increasing of savings and investments. So it can be done, but you just have to have a value. You have to shift the values to get there. My intellect tells me I can move forward. My mind says that I'm wasting my time. How to get rid of this inner voice. Again, the inner voice, anytime you have a negative self-talk, you're pursuing something that's unstrategized, not aligned to your highest values, not chunked, partly fantasy. The negative self-talk is your friend. It's a feedback to let you know, go refine your goal. Make sure it's really aligned with what's valuable. Make sure you really have a strategy that's going to get it, and you won't have negative self-talk. Negative self-talk is not some bad thing that's a weakness. It's a feedback to let you know you've got goals that aren't congruent and that are not strategized. I'm amazed at what happens there. Let's see if I go down and get a few more here. John, is a breakthrough experience a prerequisite? I've already said that one. A lot of spiritual texts suggest that in order to reach a higher level of spirituality, the goal is to acknowledge that in the present moment, all your needs are already met and suffering ends. Stop needing external things. How do you relate to the goal setting and planning? Okay, that's a great question. That comes from Katie Sanford. Well, in actuality, nothing is missing. And I explained that in the breakthrough experience. Nothing is missing. But to say that you're not here to grow is ludicrous. In fact, I had this guru that I confronted on that one time. He was an Indian guru, and he says, I don't pursue anything. Everything is abandoned, everything else. And I said, well, yeah, but you just got through telling me you need to go to the bathroom. He says, where's the bathroom? I said, well, that's a goal, because you now have a body need to go to the bathroom. And he says, you also want some food. That's a goal. So you have a goal. Everybody has a goal. You would prefer to have more knowledge. The guru is studying every day. You could prefer to study and meditate and learn. I said, so you have no more goals to meditate? No, I have goals to meditate. You have no more goals to learn more knowledge and become more enlightened? He goes, oh, yes. I said, well, don't lie to yourself that you have no goals. You're not going to sit there and be goalless. As long as you're green, you're growing. As soon as you're ripe and you rot, if you think you're done and you know everything, I mean, think about that. I've never met any human being that isn't designed to expand their awareness and their influence in life on a daily basis. I mean, that's insane. They want to expand. They want to open up. Now, you can do that by perception, decision, or action. You can expand your perceptions and realize you already have things you didn't know you had. But that's still a goal to become aware, a goal to influence, a goal to be more present. I mean, the second you're present, you're going to get distracted by events because you're going to go pee, or you're going to go and have to talk to somebody, or you're going to have to go eat. And then you're going to be out of presence sometimes, and you're going to have a goal to be present again. So I think you've got to get real about what spirituality is. I never like to put spirituality in a box. I think spirituality is everything. Everything that a person does is part of spirituality, as far as I'm concerned, even goals. I wouldn't take that off the list. What if one demonstrates he has many low values and no one naturally high enough value? Well, every human being, that's from Jonathan. I assure you, you have a high value. It's just you haven't taken the time to identify which it is. And that's why I say go on the line and do the value determination process, or come to the master planning and let's go through it methodically together. And because there's no such thing as a person that doesn't have a highest value. I've been doing this a long time, 40 years on goals and values easily, and I assure you that everybody has it. So you have it. You have goals and you have things that are high in value. Let's see. I'm going up and down, back and forth here. It says, great question. It says, one of my values is training and teaching strategy for create wealth. Wealth is developing training courses and sell them online. What is your comment? Fantastic. I think that there's many people right now with expertise and becoming an expert in a field and offering a service and helping another person that doesn't have that. It's mentoring. You deserve to get paid for something if it serves people. And fantastic. I've been doing that for many, many years. I've served millions of people as a result of it. I've been paid from that. And I think that I'm inspired by doing it. It's a great life. Go for it. That's all I can say. I think that's a wise thing. I hear a lot about celebrating your accomplished goals. I don't think I celebrate much. I'd like to move on to the next one. I'm not a big guy on going, oh my God, I'm a success. I don't think of myself as a success. I think of myself as a man on a mission, inspired mission. But I don't sit there and go, oh my God, I accomplished this. And I go, whoo, whoo. And I go and rah, rah. I'm not a rah, rah guy. I'm grateful for the goal. I document. I have the largest collection of gratitudes of anybody I've ever met. I document it every single day. I've actually typed in that I had the opportunity to do this presentation tonight. I just typed it in before I started it. The opportunity to do that, to reach thousands of people on a webinar and share insights about breaking through fantasies and achieving true goals. And that's already on my goal, my gratitude list. I'm a firm believer in doing a gratitude list, documented, but sitting there and going, wow, 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 and hi, 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 and oh man, and celebrate and go have a drink and stuff like that, to me is unnecessary. I'm not interested in that. I am grateful for the opportunity to do it, and I get on to the next one because it's inspiring to achieve. Every weekend in the breakthrough experience, when I do the breakthrough experience, I watch people's lives change. I watch hearts open. I watch people break through stuff, and I get letters from people. And documenting that and putting on my gratitude journal every day, that's a metric. That's an inspiration, and that's a celebration with a tear in the eye for a moment. Then I go out and it inspires me to go do more work, more service. I once heard you comment on how, this is Larissa Zamba. I once heard you comment on how spiritual is to get paid large amounts of money and never been able to find that clip again. Can you comment on that again? I'm not sure which comment you're describing, but I've said that if you're doing something spiritual, that means you're doing something that's a service. You're in what I call equanimity and equity. Equanimity means you're not in pride or shame where you're exaggerating or minimizing yourself, and you're in a state of equanimity where you're not looking down on somebody, minimizing them, or looking up on them and minimizing you. You have a state of equanimity and equity. That's the highest spiritual state that can be in, where there's grace. But it's also the most powerful place to produce transactions in fair exchange that are sustainable for economic growth. So true spirituality and true wealth building are the same. I don't see them separate. And anybody that goes and says, well, those are separate things and you shouldn't do that, and spirituality has nothing to do with money, then it needs their head examined, because that's true equanimity is the highest spiritual state, just about. That's a state of grace, a state of authenticity, a state of integrity, a state of inspiration. And every week in the breakthrough experience, and even in master planning, when people get an aha and they see how they can do it, and they know what they're going to do now, they get inspired and they see a spiritual path they can follow, and then they can do it. And there's no reason to get paid to do something you love doing. I mean, there's many people that have been on spiritual paths that have been very fortunate. So I don't see any separation on there. How can I determine? This is from Larry Goodman. How can I determine from my highest value what I'm to do to find my direction that will be aligned with that value? Well, first identify what the value is, and then ask yourself, okay, what is it I absolutely love to do, and how do I get handsomely paid to do it, and how do I structure it? I've in master planning, in one master planning, we started 13 companies, and it started from just that. We looked at what the values are, started from there, and worked out. and looked at what they love doing and what they spontaneously do. And I just had one of those this weekend at the Breakthrough Experience in Melbourne. It just exactly that happened. She goes, "Oh, this is what I love doing. This is my values. But how can I ever make a living doing that?" In 5 minutes of a conversation, she saw it, and she just sat there and she got tears in her eyes. She gave me a big hug and she goes, "I can't believe I've never seen this. This is so obvious. I know I can do this." We just sat down and we did a little bitty master plan kind of thing, and boom, she got it. And then she saw how she could go and make more money than she's making right now doing what she's doing. When you're doing something, you're inspired by it, and you package it in a way that serves people, there's no lack of income. And I'm a firm believer in that. I love helping people do that. It's one of my favorite parts of master planning is sitting up in the front. And while they're all working and planning out their lives and doing that, I interject every once in a while gems and insights. But I'm up in the front and the people are coming up and we're working individually like a private consulting. I normally charge like $3,000 an hour for this, but during master planning, they come up and they get 3 days of master planning private consulting. And we're going through and we're solving what they see as obstacles, and we're getting them clear on their plan, and they're helping them see how they can do it. And amazing stuff gets done, and they go back and then they have an inspiration, and sometimes they're just typing, and when the class is over, they're still typing because they see how they can do it, and it's quite inspiring. I love doing that. So all I know is that you start from that, and then you look at what your life demonstrates. See, my life doesn't demonstrate that I go to a gym every day. I do some push-ups, I do some yoga, I do some stretching, I do things, but I don't go to the gym every day. When I get on my ship, sometimes I go to the gym, and my daughter's coming this time, so we'll go to the gym, I'm sure. But that's not my highest priority. So I delegate. I delegate workouts and excessive workouts to other people, and I do moderate ones. And I try to keep myself in moderate shape that way. I'm not a fanatic about it. When strategizing large goals for future hires, do you make goals for who will come on and accomplish the job requirements? Well, when you're hiring somebody, you want somebody that's inspired by the job that you're going to delegate. So be clear about the job description, and then you want to have the best you can find for that person. You want to hire somebody that's greater at knowledge about it than you are, so you can release it, and they're engaged in it, inspired, and it's highest on their values, and they can see how that job duty is going to help them get what they want. So you can release it and not have to micromanage it and push them uphill, and get on with doing what you love doing. But if you're not ready to hire that, do it in increments. If you believe that the advantage of going and hiring that right now will catalyze your company to go forward, take the risk. The worst thing can happen is at the end of a month or 2 or 3 months, the amount you paid to get that done, if it doesn't come out the way you want it, you can refine it. Be organic, but that's where planning is. If you're going out and you're actually doing the foreplan, you can actually see whether that's probably going to make the money or not. And if not, don't hire them. If you can't see how it is, if you can't give them the action steps that you feel with certainty to generate more income than the cost, then you haven't done your plan properly yet. I think I could go probably all night on this. I think we've done an hour and a half already. So I'm going to start to wrap this up, I think. I'd love to do more of these. I like doing this. Says, one last thing here. David Turner. So you can recommend replacing a bad habit with a goal-achieving behavior, like swapping Facebook for reading a book. Yeah, but the thing is if you're getting a value out of Facebook because your highest value is socializing, and then you say, well, I'm arbitrarily going to now just go read a book. If that's not your highest value, it's just you're going to go back to Facebook. You need to truly set a goal and know what's really valuable to you. Now, I don't do a lot of social media every single day. I got an intense schedule. I got an agenda every single day. It keeps me busy every day. And so I do what is the highest priority things for me today. If social media is providing you more advantages and disadvantages, you're going to continue to do that. If reading a book is giving you more advantage and disadvantage, you'll do that. But if you don't see how the book's going to give you that result, you're not going to do it. You're going to go back to social media. Be honest with yourself when you're setting goals. Don't just arbitrarily pick one. Oh, I need to be doing this. I should be doing this. I ought to be doing this. Because those aren't your goals. Look at what your life demonstrates. Anytime you want to raise a goal upon your value list or a value on your value list, stack up the benefits. Because when the why is big enough, the hows take care of themselves. Write enough reasons why reading the book is going to help you in social media. write enough reasons why the reading of the book is going to help you in the areas that you know are important. But first do your values to find out what's important, and then link reading to that. I have no problem reading. I love reading. Every minute I get extra, I'm into reading a book or reading online. So that's part of it. Anyway, I think I've got our time gone over time. So thank you for being with me on this lovely thing. And I think it's time to mention master planning again. So those of you that would like to, join me for master planning, I've mentioned it through here. I cannot tell you the significance of it. You're going to have 2,000 questions. That plus you're going to have me answering those questions with you if necessary. We're going to go through there and we're going to have 2,000 questions in all 7 areas of your life. It's like me consulting right over your shoulder and asking you questions. If these are the questions that when I've consulted with people, thousands of people over the years, these are the questions that I ask people to help them break through their stuff. It's all there. You're there. I'm going to give you a stick. It's going to go into your computer. You're going to go to work. Anytime you have a question, you're going to come and I'll answer it. Anytime that you don't, you're going to be just focused. You're going to have moments of inspiration. You're going to get insights. You're going to look and master plan all 7 areas of your life. And it's amazing. And I think with what's going on, it's 3 solid days. Most people work right into the evening with it. We usually go from 8 in the morning till 7 at night, but most people just keep working. And it's an inspiring 3 days dedicated to your life. Because nobody's going to get up in the morning and dedicate their life to you. And nobody's going to get up and be your genie that's going to, guide you. If you're not taking and asking questions and you're not doing something like this, you're probably going to do it by trial and error. Why do trial and error when you got all this thing laid out for you? It's all done for you. I've been doing it for many, many years. I'll show you what I've done. And you can read even what I've been working on for 46 years. It's an inspiring 3 days. That's all I can say. And in addition to that, as an incentive to do it, I think we've got 10% off right now from the early bird price because it's still weeks away and months away, depending on where you're going to do it. I think we got one in London, we've got one in Houston, we've got one in possibly in Tokyo sometime next year. We have one in Johannesburg, and we have one in Sydney. So wherever that is, whether it be January, February, or March, or whatever in the year, the sooner you sign up for it, the more discount you're going to get. It'll save you money. And as an incentive, I'm going to give you the Day of Mastery. The Day of Mastery is a live presentation. It's a full day on basically mastering yourself, mastering in business, mastering finance, and mastering leadership. And it's a full day. It's a really amazing full-on day. I mean, it's live. The first time I did this program, Day of Mastery, was in Tehran to the government and to the leading. I had 600 people there, 200 government leaders and 400 corporate leaders of Tehran. And I spent the day doing it. I just did this same program in Riga, Latvia recently, about 2 weeks ago. And this is a live presentation. It's all filmed and it's an online course for you. And I'm doing that because I want you to be able to start listening to that and get inspired by that and get in motion. Because when you come to master planning, I want you to have a lot ready to go and get down on paper and type up. When you're done with master planning, you're going to print out a massive book. It's going to have your life, your dreams in front of you that you can work on and edit and put pictures in and do whatever you want with it and create your life. They used to talk about vision boards with a secret. This is a life book board. It's everything that we used to be on vision board is more comprehensive. It's all there and you put it in there. Mine has pictures, it has clips, it has videos, it's my master, so I call it the state of my mission book. So come to master planning. You're gonna say thank you for doing it, and you're gonna get a day of mastery, plus you get a 10% off the current early bird. And the sooner you do it, the more you save, because each week as the weeks go on, the price is gonna go up until the final day. And if you know somebody that you care about that's going to be working with you, if you got a spouse and you're going to work together, bring them, or anybody that you know is very important in your business, you're working together. We have many times 3 or 4 people, executive teams, come into master planning and they're working together on their projects. So they got a dovetailing of it. But take advantage of master planning because you're going to say thank you for doing it, and you're going to look back at your life and you're going to see the trajectory, a new expansion of what's possible. So if you want to learn about goals, I'm going to give you a vast amount of information on goals there and to do it. You're going to actually practice setting goals to achieve. So if you want to achieve more and make sure they're congruent and not set up fantasies and have less brain noise, and you want to have things that are working away, because remember, nobody gets up in the morning and dedicates their life to you. And if you don't get up and fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your day fills up with low priority distractions that don't. If you don't fill your week with high priority actions that inspire you, your week fills up with low priority distractions that don't. The same for the month, the same for the year, the decade, the generation, and life. If you don't fill your life with how you want it, you're guaranteed to have everybody else impose what they want for you. And nobody's dedicated to your life and nobody knows what you want. So if you don't decide, you've given them the power to decide. So come to master planning. You'll say, thank you. You're going to give 3 days to yourself. You deserve it to plan your life. You become master. I set out to be a master when I was 18 years old. I've mastered all 7 of these areas of my life today. It's because I've taken the time to do it. So come and join me. We'll work together. We're going to do something amazing. You want an amazing life? Come and let's build it. Let's go make it happen. So thank you for joining me on this webinar tonight. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you. I would love to have done all the questions, but there's, I think, more than I can do. And at least we knocked out quite a few of them. And remember to keep it focused on the highest priority things. I look forward to see it master planning. Have an absolutely amazing day or night or whatever time it is. And this is Dr. DeMartini signing over to you. See you at Master Planning.